So I'm going to throw this question to you, Danny. Adding a new software, particularly if it's a CRM or project management software, can be a daunting task. What's your best advice to the audience on approaching this task?
Yeah, so this is a big challenge. Generally, your systems, specifically CRM, are directly correlated to your ability as a business to fill your backlog, which turns into revenue. I have to tail on my presentation of you have to understand where this new system, depending on how you're going to leverage it, because CRM is a very broad term. There are specific functions within CRM. How these feature sets are going to change how your business works. So that starts with understanding your processes and understanding how your processes are going to change. And very often I see leadership not get as involved as they should be in how this software is selected as well as designed. And it's a time suck. It's a lot of time investment, but you can't do it halfway. It is a critical artery to your business, and it is a worthy investment of time. So focus, understanding your business processes, establishing how you do what you do.
So I want to pivot to Dave Exton for a moment. We weren't talking about CRM and project management specifically. We referenced it, but in your case, you oversaw the implementation of a new estimating software, and I'd love if you could just sort of outline for us what your best advice to the audience is on approaching the task of implementing a new system like that.
So the system we had previous, as Bruce was saying, was on a platform that's no longer supported, but the new system that we had to buy off the shelf, we had to configure it so it looks and feels as much like the old system that we were using. We're in the process of training everybody on how to use a new system, so we had to build in the data exactly the same. We had to build in templates, entire estimates of templates exactly the same. So I think initially, prior to releasing any new software, make sure that you've built it out as best as you can. If you had previous products and everybody's used to using those products, then go ahead and see if you can match or mimic what you had in the past. So that's pretty much what I'd say.
And Dave,
Patrick, I think something else we learned through that process
Go ahead.
is that people learn differently. And so Dave did this amazing job, put together all of these videos, and there were people that just jumped in and understood it almost immediately. And then there were people that just didn't get it. And we had to do a series of in-person trainings, and then Dave followed up one-on-one with people. So it's just being aware that what you think is the right way to migrate people from one platform to the other may not be the same way those people need to learn it.
Got it. That's a really good point, but good best practice. But Dave, real quickly, how many estimates a year do you guys do at Case Design? And how big is your staff?
Let's see, it's a staff of one. I estimate about $150 million a year. 40 million, 45 million of that actually goes into sales. And the reason I say it's 150 million is I have to do multiple schemes, I have to do revisions. There are some projects that don't move forward. So anywhere between 150 million and 200 million a year. It's about 200 projects a year.
We guys give the big round of applause right there. That's incredible. How much training time should you plan for in order to get your team running on new software? Bill, you just sort of alluded to some of the training techniques. Bruce, maybe you could start with that.
Well, as you're asking, well, first of all, by the way, Dave Exton's estimates are within 1 to 2 points of estimated, so the cost variance actual to estimated is within 1 to 2 points, either higher or lower, so it's also not just a lot, but it's pretty damn accurate in my opinion, so kudos to Dave. Training time, as you were asking that question, Patrick, I'm thinking it's a year or two. I don't know that that's your real question, because is it like number of hours within that year or two? But it takes a while. As Bill said, you know, a third of the team, and I said this, a third of the team will be on it. They'll learn it. They'll go home at night at 8 o'clock at night and be drinking a glass of wine, learning the estimating software, but then a third's not going to do it until you basically say you can't use the old system anymore, kicking and screaming, which it takes us about, what, a year, 18 months to get to that point where we're like, it's done. So I don't know if I'm answering your question directly, but, you know. And the other thing I'll say, if I could real quick, is it's just-in-time learning. So most, like taking the sales team with an estimating system, most of them, again, other than the early adopters, don't really want to learn it until they need to. I mean, that's human nature. I'm not knocking anybody. It's just the way it is. So at the end of the month, when they're trying to land the plane on a bunch of sales, I need help yesterday, and oh, this new system sucks, and oh, you know, how come you guys haven't trained me? Take a deep breath, you know, we'll get, you know, but so there is some of that too.
Learning in real time is most useful. So we like to say, so whatever projects you have going on, like for the next project coming up, like use that as a real case study, get that onto Buildertrend and use that as a way to sort of really get everyone to learn it. Change management is hard. The human brain is not wired for change usually. And so just kind of piggybacking on the first question, like ultimately, like we find it's very, very helpful to like really understand your organization, map out, you know, all of your individuals and kind of see like where their change quotient is and try to get it on real-time learning on the job as much as possible. You know, the classroom learning can only help so much. And with that, you know, you can do it. We've seen companies within 90 days, they can fully get up and running across their organization. But if the buy-in is there, the owners understand exactly who needs to be bought in and really helps push that through. It can be quick if there's a project and everyone's bought in. But then it can take up to a year or two.
Thank you, and we're going to stay with you for 1 second. Software is typically underutilized, so that has more features and benefits advertised or promoted. And when people bring them into the company, obviously they're trying to match their own systems and processes, and therefore some just don't get utilized. And what are your thoughts about this phenomenon? I think it happens a lot with platform-type systems like the one that you currently work on. So what are your thoughts about this phenomenon? How do you combat that, or are you encouraging people to use other parts of the software?
Absolutely. So Buildertrend, as many of you guys know, it's sort of posed as an all-in-one solution. We have project management, but we have other things like CRM and financial management. And so what we typically recommend is you pick one that is most relevant to your business and what your needs are. Go as deep as possible, fully adopt that before you sort of adopt the rest. And then in terms of the rest, it should be really up to your needs as a business. Ultimately, we want everyone to use Buildertrend for everything, but it doesn't always make sense for every builder based on their specific needs. But there are benefits to leveraging one platform for everything because data sort of stays within the same area and you can ultimately kind of get that full picture of your business, as I alluded to earlier. But ultimately, look for vendors that really understand. They're not just trying to push you to adopt that extra part for the sake of doing that, but like what is the outcomes of your business that you're trying to drive with, say, financial management, and how can we actually help you do that with the service as opposed to just, here is what the feature is, you should adopt it, and like here's like training on how to do that. That's ultimately, that buy-in, that's what will ultimately get the full adoption.
Danny, Bruce, or Bill, any thoughts on this concept of like just not using whole parts of a software that you purchased, or what is your approach to that phenomenon?
So I think there's an interesting dichotomy that you have to balance. When you talk about like leveraging all of a software, there's also an element of customization. And there's a dichotomy of using how it's built and customizing. And every time you choose to customize, there is a hidden form of debt in that decision. So although you may be digging really deep into a software, you need to realize that every customization you make, when you're ready to take the next step, you have to figure out a solution for it in some ways. And sometimes you can really lock yourself into a box of how your system has to work for your business. And you start to gain blind spots of how a system could work or how you could migrate. When you think about leveraging all pieces of software, know that anytime you choose to implement or utilize, there is a form of debt that you accrue that is there.
we take a pretty pragmatic approach to these things, and we're remodelers, so hard is what we do, and that if we need to compromise CRM in order to have a better project management system, we'll use a different CRM instead of compromising. Or if software is going to be too rigid in how we use it, we'll find a platform that is more aligned with. You can't believe how hard it was to get people to call them opportunities instead of leads, because that's what CRM calls in-person visit. I mean, just something that simple was a struggle. So we are stuck in this world of cobbling together the best components and letting some of the other stuff sort of atrophy. Now, maybe we were talking about APIs earlier, and maybe glue will be developed in the future to allow us to plug best of breed, at least for us personally, stuff into other platforms to make life easier. But I think that's just a cost of doing business for us right now.
Okay.
I mean, so I'm adding the same thing, but like looking at the true total cost of ownership, obviously there's the price, but then the people time, all that, the data entry time. There might be a time where we use a system that maybe is equal to one that's within our existing, but it's a lot cheaper, easier. Looking at that total cost of ownership to us is key.
Great. So we're going to open up the questions to folks who are in the audience, and there's 2 microphones here. All you have to do is walk up to the microphone, state your name, your company, and direct your question to one of our panelists, and I think they'll do their best to answer it. And we see Mr. David Merrick from Merrick Design Build. David.
How about that?
Thank you. I don't have to introduce myself now.
No, you do not.
I've been one of the early adopters since before computers existed, and when they came out, I was right there with my 386s. And I've always had the mentality that if I'm going to invest in a software platform, I should at least give them a chance to understand how it all works and do things the way the software designers designed it to do it. So we've been a customer of Buildertrend for 10 years, and I have always said it would be nice if it could do that, or there's another CRM program that if I could partner with that. So the whole idea of APIs coming into existence now, and I know APIs have been around a long time, but how many people in this room know how to configure an API? Where are we with the software developers in accepting this, that my software is really good at this, but it stinks here, and these guys over here have a better CRM? Am I willing to make my software accept their components? It seems to me that we've got to go through an evolution in the software industry, that you guys want to work together to make a comprehensive program that we can all use to do what we want. Because the CRM part of Buildertrend stinks.
Oh, yeah. David, well said.
Oh, come on, no, I love it.
I mean, I'll be the first to admit.
That's what I was going to ask, but Vengan, why don't you respond?
Feels like you're holding that in for a while. But, ultimately, fully agree with you. I think we have also realized that as well. Technology does not grow on trees. We serve all kinds of residential construction contractors, from the full service design build to even the home improvements as well. And you can't be all things to all people, and you only have a limited amount of resources. And so by really embracing the API like technology and the platform ecosystem approach, we will be able to enable customers to use what they need and then get the best of breed solutions for the other areas where we're just not as good at. So we can't be the best at everything, and we understand that, and that's the path that we're taking as a business.
I think a lot of it depends on.
Questions for our panel? And I can't really see too well. We have a gentleman rising. Okay, if you could state your name and your company.
Roy Jones, Renova. So just to add to that question there, so with the API connectivity, when you're evaluating a system, I guess when you're evaluating, would you prioritize a out-of-the-box connection with another system, or an open API that we could then develop onto? Just looking for the future of your organization.
I think the barriers to entry for integrations are lowering very rapidly. There's a group of softwares called iPaaS, Integration Platform as a Service, that I believe opens a lot of doors to more of a microservice architecture, to where you can have one system for one part of the business and another system for another part of the business. And the level of talent required to create that connection is getting lower and lower and lower. So it really depends on your maturity as a business. Like at Westshore, we really benefited from having one platform for a really long period of time, to where there was less barriers of saying, this is a good idea, let's try it. But as our talent has increased, we've needed more capability. And I absolutely don't recommend shoving a round peg in a square hole, because there's cost to that. And with the barrier to integration lowering, I think in the future, there will be more of a microservice architecture, and things are moving in that direction because of what was mentioned about limited resources, limited amount of focus. You can't be all things to all people.
We have a gentleman with a question. If you could state your name and your company.
Hi, Joe Smith, Owings Brothers Remodeling. Know a few of these guys up here. Question, at what point technology, like we all know about technology, we embrace it and hate it. At what point do you feel like a technologist is valuable to your company, or someone permanently on your staff versus outsourcing? I know a lot of us struggle with, what that bottom line number, if you add someone on staff, or are you paying someone?
It's a really good question. Obviously, it depends on a million things. As a full-service home remodeler, different than specialty, just my gut tells me that when you get to that, we all need technology, Joe, as you know, and outsourcing it certainly, but at some point, as you're touching on, I think we need somebody in-house. I think it's important enough when you get to that $5 to $10 million range to really, on sales, to really be thinking about it. Exactly what number, I don't know, but also think about the level of the person. For instance, our director of technology, Karen, who's here, is very experienced and established, and there's obviously different levels of person, but I feel like it's important enough to have someone. I feel like it's also to have someone that's advocating for your business, because with third party, no offense to anybody or anybody in the room, but they're not part of your day-to-day business, and an internal technologist can really understand that better. But I think it's critical they also understand your business, as I keep sort of touching on. They're not just sort of in a back corner technologist, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend doing it immediately. Like 5 to 10 million probably is a good number. And when you think about the salary of somebody who really knows your business, I'd recommend pivoting them to making everybody else better. There is returns in increase of lead conversion or increase in confirmation processes through technology gains. And that salary very quickly can be justified. And starting out, really recommend somebody that has rapport within the business, that has the rapport to be able to make recommendations and changes, and can really evaluate from a business perspective where your bottlenecks, and know the business well enough to identify them, and they can learn the skills. I think the ability to manage software, you don't have to hire somebody from MIT to start making your inside sales systems work better. It could be an agent that sees it every day and understands how it works. So I think there's a low barrier to that, and I'd recommend doing it because they can make everyone around them better.
And Karen could speak better, but just to add one quick thing, I've learned, again, not an IT person, there's two different worlds. There's the hardware and there's the software, or applications and hardware. I'd, at least as a business person, I don't know how you all feel because you know more about it, but I'd recommend that person be more on the software side, I feel like, to begin with. Because the hardware side, I feel, I don't know if you all agree or not, is potentially easier to outsource for a little bit longer, but the application side, would you all agree? Or do you,
Because everything goes to the cloud. It's software.
Right.
Yeah. Hardware, you won't differentiate your customer experience.
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question, and then we're going to bring up one more other individual. Go ahead.
So in remodeling, you have your specialties. They all practice the 10 steps to a sale so they can walk in, do the estimate, and get it done. I'm a remodeler. I do a lot of additions, front porches, all kinds of different things. Do you guys recommend sitting down in front of the customer and doing the estimate for that particular project right then and there and trying to get it to the one-set close?
For us? No.
Not for us. I mean, go ahead.
So,
No.
Sorry, just to clarify the question, we have home improvement specialty firms here that do a lot of selling in the home and closing in the home same day. And your question was, you do major remodeling, and you're asking them if they are interested.
Can you do that in a one-sit close? Meet the person, generate the information on the estimate, supply the estimate, and give them the total investment before you leave in just one sit.
So we wouldn't approach it that way because we're kind of process driven, and there's a little difference between that becomes a product as opposed to a process. So what we're trying to do at that initial meeting is sell us in our ability to help you get through this process and make great decisions so that the project is exactly what you want it to be and not what I want it to be. And it's really hard to develop, pick every cabinet, every piece of tile, all the grout, door hardware, window manufacturer, blah, 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 in an hour and a half with a client when, I mean, it just, we would never try to do that. We would try to sell a design agreement, a case study in one step, and budget that and go through time and what was possible. But that would be an entry point into our process, as opposed to we're going to try and sell somebody an addition. It's just not the way we're wired.
And Dave would have to be in every appointment
right. We'd have to drag
doing
him
an
everywhere.
estimate, and as fast
On
as
the
he is,
phone.
that would be tough. All right, so we're going to wrap it up there. Let's give these guys a big round of applause. Great job.